Okay, let's call this meeting to order. City of North Kansas City, Missouri, regular council meeting amended March 17th, 2020. We have a moment of silence. Rita, are you? Rita?
Oh, I'm sorry, it's Jesse. Jesse,
Yes,
so
yes.
Jesse.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Consent agenda, item 4 through 8.
I move the consent agenda be approved as presented.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, number 9.
Auditor's presentation of fiscal year 2018-2019 financial statements.
Gary?
Thanks, sir. I'll call on the finance manager.
Shirley Lamb.
Which one?
Manager.
Okay, I'm going to be introducing Chester Moyer, or letting him do, or what?
He's on mute, so he'll come off mute when you're ready for him.
Okay, Chester, it's your ball game.
Great. Hi, Shirley. Thank you. Is this volume okay?
Yes, can everybody hear him? Yeah. Yes, sir.
Great. Thank you. Again, my name is Chester, and I'm the audit partner for the audit of the City of North Kansas City. And we were the auditors previously in 2014. So it's been 5 years, and we're pleased to be back working with the city. So thank you for that opportunity. The result of our audit is really 3 documents. One of the documents is the financial statements, also called the Comprehensive Annual Financial Report. That's the 100-page document you have. And then we have 2 other documents. So even though we spend most of our time working through the financial statement, the other 2 documents are actually where we'll spend some time tonight to talk through them. The first of those other documents is called our viewpoints. If you look on the cover in the bottom right-hand side, it says viewpoints. That includes our required communications that the profession has of us to you as governance. And then the third document is our management letter, a shorter document that we'll also cover briefly tonight. So if you'll pick up the viewpoints document, and if you want to follow along, that's fine. Also, it's kind of more of a conversational approach to doing our required auditor communications, and I'll try to move through it, focusing on the items that would be of most relevance to the discussion tonight. So I'm going to first move to page 3. It's the page that's numbered 3 at the bottom of the page of that viewpoints document. And this covers what our responsibility is to you. So we conducted our audit in accordance with our profession standards, but then also layered on top of that are the government auditing standards, and we conducted our audit in accordance with them as well. And because of the way the city operates and its authority it has over the hospital and the hospital's pension plan, those 2 items are also included in the financial statements of the city, but they are not audited in accordance with the government auditing standards. They also have different year ends than the city, which has the September 30th year end. So what we conclude on is our audit opinion, and our audit opinion is a clean opinion. We call that an unmodified opinion, but that's the best or highest level of opinion that we give when we conduct an audit. So the City of North Kansas City received our clean opinion this year. And we also issued a report in accordance with government auditing standards, and that will be that management letter as well that we'll go over here after this document. And I'm going to turn to page 5 at the bottom of the page, page number 5. We're required to communicate with you about the planned scope and timing of the audit, and if the audit was completed in accordance with that, and this audit was completed in accordance with that timing. This was our first year again, and we hope to have the audit completed with a little more time before the end of March, but that we're still well in compliance with what the state requires as far as filing. The second item that I wanted to talk about on page 5 is that the Governmental Accounting Standards Board, that's the body that sets the standards that we follow, did have 2 accounting standards that were relevant to the city this year that were new, and we evaluated them. One of them really had no impact on the city. The second one did have an impact on the city through the North Kansas City Hospital's financial statements, which are reported up through the city. So on the whole, the standards that are new required by the Governmental Accounting Standards Board were not all that significant to implement this year. They certainly have been in years past. Turning to page 6, we're required to communicate to you about the accounting estimates that are included in the financial statements, and there are a handful of estimates in those statements that are significant. For example, around the valuation of the pension plans, for example, the fair value of investments included within those plans. Those are some of the estimates. And we evaluated those estimates and determined them to be reasonable and appropriate. The financial statements also include the notes to the financial statements, and we're required to communicate to you any of the notes that we feel like might be more significant than others. And we point out at the bottom of page 6 what those notes are, and those notes would be around your deposits and investments, gaming, rent revenue, and then the retirement systems and pension plans footnote. On page 7, there's only 2 things that I wanted to bring up on this page. One is that as a result of our audit, we're presented with a trial balance, that basically the general ledger, the financial information of the city, and then as the audit goes through the process, there are changes to it, both from a client's perspective, as things are identified that need to be adjusted from the client's perspective, just to get things caught up. And there may be things that the auditors identify as adjustments that need to be made in order for the financial statements to be reported appropriately. So those journal entries are included at the very end of this document. The last few pages of this document, those would be the changes to both the client entries and then the entries that we made as auditors. And then also before that document are the representations that management made to us. We do inquire of them a lot, and we ask a lot of them through the course of the audit. That letter just reaffirms everything that they told us during the audit, that it was their best representation of what they told to us. So that concludes the required communication that I wanted to talk about from that auditor communications document. I'd like to move to the management letter document, which is one of the other. It's about 6 pages long. And that management letter is required of us when we perform an audit under government auditing standards. So again, this only relates to what the city has accounting related rather than the hospital or the hospital's pension plan, although those are included in the financial statements because those are not performed in accordance with government auditing standards. Those there may have been items reported that wouldn't be included in this specific report just because they don't flow through the finance department here at the city. So to go to the very last 2 pages of that document, that summarizes what our observations, findings, and recommendations are, and they're done in a format that's required by the government auditing standards. We have 2 items that we identified as significant deficiencies. I'm told that these are not new for the city, but they were our observations this year. So the 2019-001 is a observation around the control structure or segregation of duties over the cash receipt for the city. And the second item is around the preparation of the financial statements and the reliance on outside resources in order to make sure that they are GAAP compliant. So those two items are the conclusion of our management letter. There are the views of responsible officials, which would be management at the City of North Kansas City, their responses to those observations, and we accept them and have included them in the report. So that really concludes the prepared remarks that I have for you tonight, and I'd be happy to take any questions or any other observations that people might have.
Anybody on council have any questions?
No.
All right. Well, in that case, Mr. Moyer, thank you. This is Eric Berlin, by the way, City Administrator speaking. And at this point, I'd like to call on Shirley to make some closing remarks.
I just want to make sure you have any questions for me. And as you had noticed, I'm retiring, so this is not only my last audit, but my last council meeting and my last audit.
Oh, wow.
Okay. I wanted to take this opportunity to thank you all for the opportunity to work here for the last almost 18 years, and it's been a wonderful experience. I've worked with some really great people to work for and work with, and it's been strong. So thank you for your judgment.
If I could just add, I appreciate all the work that Shirley's done since I've been here. She's also been very helpful to our new finance manager, Nick Hawkins. She's worked with him for the last 3 weeks, preparing him to succeed her. And Shirley is also going to remain on the payroll for us and will consult with us as necessary, and I'm sure there will be times when it's necessary over the course of the next year, given as her schedule and all permits. But so I appreciate that very much as well. So thank you, Shirley, for everything.
You got a lot of pressure here now.
No, I think that there's no action required, Jeff.
Okay, number 10.
Consideration of an ordinance authorizing emergency procedures, bill number 7499, ordinance number 9296.
Mr. Eric.
Thank you, sir. So I would like to call on Mr. Barzee. We have, in addition to the ordinance, which you may have had an opportunity to see, Mr. Barzee also did, the ordinance, among other things, authorizes the mayor to make a proclamation. Mr. Barzee's drafted the proclamation, and so he's going to talk about both the ordinance and the proclamation that we drafted for the mayor. And then if the council approves the ordinance, we'd like to take a short pause so the mayor can sign that proclamation. So, Tom?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, members of the City Council, I've represented the city along with a former law partner for now over 40 years, the last 17 of which have been full-time with the city. I never anticipated ever drafting or needing to draft an ordinance quite like the one that's before you this evening. These are different times. And I just want to say there's been a lot of work that's gone on in a rather short period of time by city staff, and I'm very impressed with it. It's an honor to work with people like that come together, no egos involved, and everybody pitches in and does what needs to get done. Let me explain what's before you, and please feel free to ask any questions you might have. That would be to me or other staff that is here as well. The ordinance, first of all, the whereas clauses, I always try to put those in, it gives a little history, but in this instance, they're really important from the standpoint, I wanted to lay out where we had legal authority to be doing things that we're doing. We're a third-class city, as you know. We don't have a charter form of government. Therefore, we can only do such things as the legislature authorizes us to do, and those things that can be reasonably construed to come under that. And fortunately, in this area, the language is pretty broad. And in my opinion, and in the opinion of other lawyers who I respect that I've talked to about this, we all believe that it's broad for a reason. Remember, the primary purpose of a municipality such as this is to protect the public health, safety, and welfare. That's as basic. Those are your police powers. And that's as basic as you're going to get. Very basic. In the ordinance, though, what it does is it's divided really into four broad sections. The first of which are findings. This would be on page 2, where it says section 1. It's findings of the city council. Basically, what this does is it acknowledges this very contagious disease that's going on right now and spreading throughout the entire world, as we know, known as COVID-19, the coronavirus disease. The second area are basic goals and objectives. They're pretty fundamental, pretty basic, and outline the desire of providing for certain powers and authorities to take place more quickly than a governmental body like this could typically get together and gather together when you need to act on things. Then the next area, section 3, this gets into the nuts and bolts of things, and it's divided into 2 areas. The first area is the approval of certain purchasing and spending authority that you have the authority typically to approve, that if passed would grant those to the mayor. There are some exceptions here, but it grants them to the mayor. The purpose is, in essence, the intent would be to keep the government running as smoothly as possible during this emergency time period. Yes, go ahead, ask the question now. It's okay with the mayor.
Is that okay, Mr. Mayor?
Yeah.
So is that going to be accounting payables that we usually approve at the end?
You're getting, and what might happen in some instances, they may get approved ahead of time, but at the end of the day, assured of this, every expenditure that's made will still have to be ratified by you. Sometimes expenses, when you approve this, and you guys can correct me if I'm wrong, but what the procedure is, you pass a pay bill, like you'll pass tonight, the checks are mailed tomorrow.
Right.
Okay? There will be times here when those checks may very well be mailed before you've ever signed off on them. And what you're doing is you're relying upon the mayor's good judgment, and he, in here it provides, those day-to-day decisions are made by Mr. Berlin. The good news is, Eric isn't here. This isn't his first time working with you folks. He's been here now for a number of years. You know who he is as a man, and he's someone you can clearly depend upon to get things done and get them done right. Okay? And of course, if it's something like this, I'm going to speak for the mayor here because he and I have had some conversations. If something comes up that is extremely unique and different, there's no reason that you may not be called on the telephone and inquired about something that might be something that you go, I'm not really sure how the council would come down on us doing this. There will be a desire for us to reach out. When I say us, whomever, to reach out to you. This is not trying to hide the ball. Plus, interestingly, just so you know, all of this has to come to you within no later than 30 days, and will be subject to review and audit by the city's independent auditors. So if there's any question about it at all, it will be ratified that way. So that pretty much takes care of financial matters with the city. It does give, beyond even budgetary, we always come in, when I say we, like I do, I never bring anything to amend the budget. But Mr. Berlin does, and department heads do, you need to amend the budget. This does waive that obligation if the mayor, feels that it's important that we need to act on something right away and to do something. I don't have anything in mind, but let's say it becomes so bad here, we're having to replenish protective gear for our first responders, and the mayor says, buy it. And yes, it's beyond the what you have in your budget, he's gonna say buy it, they're gonna buy it, and then they come back and get permission to have bought it. Folks, it's only gonna be a real emergency that you get to that point. The second area is this. It deals with holding these meetings, okay? Some have taken a little bit different view, other lawyers, etc. I take the really conservative reading of what the statute says. Hence, we're having this meeting tonight. Under different circumstances, I understand, but nevertheless, we're having this meeting tonight. However, what I am concerned about, and remember, I'm a lawyer, I am paid to assume that if it can go wrong, it will go wrong. So my example I'm about to use, please forgive me. What happens because of this emergency? We cannot get 5 council people here to have a quorum. State statute doesn't have any, it doesn't provide technically for you to vote on things, vote, and not have a majority of the council present. We tried to accommodate it by the 30-day rule, okay, here, managing things, but what you have to be able to do, if this got bad enough, you have to be able to keep paying people, especially these departments, the water department, well, public works, but water department, they have to keep going. And you expect to pay these people because they're the ones on the front lines out there if it really goes bad. And if we couldn't get a quorum together, because the state statute requires that, I wanted something to you've at least considered it. And yes, it may be a technical violation of the Sunshine Law, but the sick people call in and they say aye. Okay, and you vote on something, and yes. And so if someone really wanted to challenge that legally, they could. My best guess is a judge would severely chastise the other side, and they might find us, my best guess would be, he might say, yes, and I fine you $1. Okay? Courts are not, in these times, are not going to get too excited. In fact, if you saw that in the paper, there's discussion right now, an emergency bill has been introduced in the state legislature, but I think someone told me, maybe an Eric or somebody, that may not be till May or whatever.
Right, that's what it said.
That something like that might move forward. So that's what the second area does. It's not trying to hide the ball, and it's not trying to avoid the... See, when people get in trouble, cities get in trouble, they intentionally try, they're doing it for some other reason to violate. There's no intent here to violate. I've even had lawyers calling me and asking for copies of what we're doing here because they're trying to figure out the same thing. How are you going to do it? If someone comes up with a better way, I'm glad to listen to them. And so then the third, in section 4, the next area and the last area is granting the mayor powers to issue a proclamation for a health emergency is what I'm calling it, and we're talking about specifically. And by the way, this ordinance only does that. At first, when I sat down and started drafting something after Eric and I talked on the phone Sunday, I started drafting something yesterday morning. I was just thinking about, we'll just amend our city code and put some language in. And I said, no, this is a unique situation. We can talk about that when we have at a broader discussion sometime in the future. I need to be able to talk to you on how we can handle this on a one-time basis. Heard from a couple of council people a little concerned about it, only ending at the time the emergency goes away. So as you will notice at the very end, this will expire on April 22nd. That's a Wednesday after the second council meeting in April, unless you folks vote at that stage to keep it going. I put that in because that should be, it's easier than passing a new ordinance. You say, no, we're going to amend this and we're going to allow it to keep it going. Or hopefully it ends sooner because the emergency's gone. That might be wishful thinking at this stage from what I've read, but nevertheless, it does. So the emergency powers of the mayor. Basically, once the CDC has indicated their recommendation, most places are now following that. And that is no gatherings of greater than 10 people, okay? And therefore, that has a direct impact. And here, it does say no gatherings of 10 people that come within in less than 6 feet of one another, and hence we're trying to keep that. I'm sorry, Mr. Steffen and Mr. Stewart, I got a little bit in your area there, but that's why we have everybody divided the way we are this evening. And so, what in essence, if passed tonight, or any portion of this, remember this, folks, if there's some part of this you don't like, because I deem that this is an emergency, we will strike through things tonight or add things in handwriting and we'll fix it the way you want it. I was simply trying to get something together for you to look at in a timely fashion. It has been looked at, I know, by the city administrator and the city clerk. I've asked both of them to read it. But the mayor would then enter, if authorized, would enter then the proclamation and an order and indicating basically, it's the same as in the proclamation is pretty much a watered-down version of what Kansas City's proclamation says. I figured it'd be easier if we have pretty much the same one they did. When I say watered-down version, the reason is theirs goes into great detail talking about all of their schools and handling schools. Well, we have the high school here in town, and the school district seems, and we have a different district than that, school district seems to be doing a pretty good job of handling that. So I intentionally didn't put any of that language in here.
Right.
I'd like to ask you, Mr. Barzee, about this on section 4.
Section 4, sure.
Page 4 here, under number 3.
3, yeah. Yes, let me get it from you. Yes.
You find it there, it says to order the closing.
Right, of any and all business establishments,
So
including...
does that mean the McDonald's and Subway and they're going to be closed?
Yes, but when you read down to the rest of it...
Yeah, I'm wondering what I'm missing here.
Okay, but if you read the entire thing, they're not going to be closed because the definition here, okay, is... hang on just one second. The intent is that you cannot have dine-in, and if I need to write the word dine-in here, I'll be glad to do that. But this is exactly the language on that on restaurants that Kansas City has.
Well, just to clarify, my understanding of this section is that it provides us with the authority to do so.
Correct.
It is not doing so.
That is correct.
Correct?
That
Okay.
is correct.
So this is giving us overall...
If we get a
can-
worst-case scenario, now
Right.
one thing I had a draft of this, and it even gave the mayor the authority to issue a curfew. We thought, Eric and I discussed that, we thought if we got to that point, if it got that bad, we ought to get you folks involved
Yeah,
in that.
okay.
Jesse?
But in the proclamation, if I might interrupt, section 1, for purposes, which I'd like you to maybe just summarize, but for purposes of this proclamation in order, the term group
Right.
event means any gathering of 10 or more people at any restaurant, tavern, bar, etc. So in other words, this wouldn't cover takeout, it wouldn't cover drive-through, things like that, because that's not assembling 10 or more people.
Jesse?
So that was my question. So I understand the intent of the ordinance is to give the power to do so, and then the proclamation is where I'm a little concerned. So section 1 defines the group gathering 10 or more, which has also been a pretty fluid thing. Some countries are going to 5, some have stopped at 50. But where it gets a little tricky is in section 2 it says they can't have group gatherings. What that could turn into is, I'm picturing, say, Chicken and Pickle, for example. You could have multiple groups of 4 here, 6 there, 10 over here, and the way I'm reading this, that seems okay as long as they're all kind of 6 feet spaced out. What other municipalities have, my understanding is they've gone to is saying no dine-in, no bar services, only takeout, drive-through, and delivery, which clears the deck of that sort of thing and keeps people out of those sort of scenarios.
Correct.
So that's, I would hope that we could get something a little more strongly worded than this to say, and that would stop with McDonald's or Subway as well. You could still go through the drive-through, you could still order to go and carry out, but you couldn't go in and sit down, even in groups of 4 here, 7 over there.
We could pass this and then we could make a motion to make a change to how our businesses operate. Is that, or would you recommend it's included in this?
Yeah, we're here. Well, let me try to get all of the concerns right here. First of all, what you have to understand is you're trying to get this all together to have it available for you this evening. I'm not looking for an excuse, but I felt like the easiest way was to simply follow what Kansas City had done and in the proclamation, not the ordinance, but the proclamation. And that would make it the easiest way to put that together. But the ordinance gives the mayor I'll be candid, it gives him broader authority than what we're anticipating the proclamation's going to be, even if we need to say that. I can tell you this, I've talked to Chief Hargis, he's gone around and talked to the operators already. For example, Chicken and Pickle, they voluntarily closed except for their pickleball courts, which doesn't apply because when they're playing pickleball, they're more than 6 feet apart. It doesn't really fall under this, okay? But the restaurant operation, bar, has, I guess you said they voluntarily closed, Dave?
They're still doing curbside.
Curbside, okay.
They sent an email.
They closed the dine-in, they made the announcement.
And so I think, and when I took a little walk down through downtown, Chapels is totally closed. I noticed that Jimmy John's, says go and grab or whatever, and you can go in and get something and leave. Now Jefferson's was still open.
Closing at 7 tonight.
There you go.
Dine in tomorrow, or dine out, curbside and carry out.
There you go. So the point is, the intent is to allow them, I can tell you this, and we'll be the ones enforcing it. When I say we, like I'm going to be out there doing it, but it'll be, the interpretation is dine in, drink in, whatever you want to call it, is not permitted, okay? It's because we don't want large groups of people getting together.
So like, if we're doing like where they can carry out, if they go into a restaurant, if you have more than 10 people in the restaurant waiting for an order, how would that work, or would the restaurant be responsible for social distancing?
I think it's up to the restaurant owner, and we're not going to,
They were asking me
the
tonight.
intent's not to go in and start to get people, that's
Right.
not anyone's intent. We're assuming that there's going to be a lot of just voluntary compliance, because I think as a people, we're trying to, get through this together.
They were just asking me tonight, so that's why I asked.
Okay.
Yeah, I worry a little bit about voluntary, I worry a little bit about voluntary compliance because prior to, say, this past weekend, there were large announcements saying socially distanced and the lines wrapped around bars, people were out partying. People don't voluntarily comply at this point until it seems like you twist their arm. So it almost feels like we would need to say a little more specifically, dine-in services, bar service, as specific as we can get, and then make it somehow enforceable to, if they are, I see, I think it was 25 to 500 and some sort of imprisonment, like how that's going to be enforced. Is it going to be somebody calls and reports it, or is there going to be monitoring how that works?
Well, okay, well, the bottom line at the end of the day, what you have to understand is, what's the ability to enforce? Look, be real candid with you. We really thought, all the other counties around us the county health department has issued an actual order. And Kim's been working with them today, and the most we got is they issued something saying, we strongly recommend against this, and refused to issue an actual order. Fact. Okay? Others, because we were anticipating that would handle it. Clay County would just handle it, and they have more teeth. Remember, even Kansas City, I checked to see So let's say a bar decides to stay open in Kansas City, Missouri. What can Kansas City do about it? They can give them a GOS.
What's that?
And they can be fined then by going to court up to $500 a
To
day.
answer your question,
That's
if
what
we
it-
heard, we'd send the police in to take a look around it, or the fire department.
Somebody.
It's a general ordinance summons. It is a citation to make them report to municipal court. That is as speedy as we can get.
Yeah, we can't
Sorry about that.
actually say,
We call it
everybody
check.
out now, and we couldn't necessarily do
In the absence of the county doing something.
that, right?
Jesus. What's going on with Cook County?
I don't know.
Well,
What's
that's
that?
a question that we can answer here.
Okay, please understand, while I'm working on this, Kim's working
Yeah.
on trying to run the traps to get that done.
I read that.
And we were really hoping that Clay County would have entered an order, we would have still had this here for you, but we wouldn't have, we'd say, hey, here's the good news. Clay County's entered an order, they're the health department, they have more teeth to enforce this stuff than we do. But if we didn't do something with what they've done, people are just saying, well, that's a recommendation. And I think Dave got some of that, but we'll wait for an order.
And I did speak to, probably the majority of the businesses in town that this will affect. Some of them were willing to voluntarily comply and did already. Others said, they're gonna take, if you pass it tonight, it's gonna take effect tonight or tomorrow morning.
Right.
So, there's not something there, the majority are gonna comply, but there's gonna be a handful until it is something set down in writing that we're forbidding that outside the county, sending out an order.
And my
They're probably
personal,
not gonna comply.
my personal recommendation is, if you can get to, approving the ordinance and approving the proclamation, we go out after the meeting immediately and,
Let's go.
there's a public health emergency
Yeah,
going on
let's
here.
go.
I don't think we'd give them one more night for.
Yeah, And I don't necessarily think we need to make it, with all due respect, more restrictive than this. I think that the point is being made through this proclamation, and particularly what Eric said, what Dave said, what our chief probably will do. And I really think, living here for a long time, that most of the people will comply anyway. Because frankly, it will not be in their best interest as businesses to be the non-compliant people in the middle of this emergency. Because I personally, and I can't speak for the whole world, but I think that if other businesses are sacrificing themselves because of the public health need, those who don't will not be the ones who we're spending our money with on down the line. Above the fact that there will be enforcement in. I really think this is a very well-written document. And if we get too specific, I think it's gonna tie hands. We don't need to do right now.
You made me, this is Pierce, you made me think of a very, very important thing. Folks, you're only voting on the ordinance tonight. If the mayor finds out and the chiefs come in and Eric figures out, there's missing a few words in here, we don't have to come back to you. He'll issue an amended order.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's what I wanted to understand, is how
Yeah.
that was gonna work.
He will, and we don't have to come back if you pass the ordinance.
Right.
You've given him broader powers in the ordinance than, they're gonna be,
We're watching
they're
you.
gonna be watching him. You folks are gonna be watching him. But you've given him broader powers, and so if we need to make it a more stringent proclamation,
Okay.
we will make it really clear and go hand it to them, and we can have that done as soon as tomorrow or whatever, if someone is saying, well, it's missing this in it, and therefore,
Okay.
and if we get one of those, that's the way I think we do it. So
Exactly.
you're not voting, we wanted you to see it, but you're not voting tonight on the proclamation
Get
itself.
the ordinance done so we can get out and enforce it.
That's why I tried to give the mayor as broad powers as what you would really need.
Rick?
I agree that, Councilman Smith, if you don't have to follow a recommendation. Nobody does. You can recommend all you want. But this is a national, a worldwide emergency. It don't fiddle far around. you tell them, they can't have in-room dining or however you want to.
Right.
In the bar, just tell them right up front.
And
We
this-
let them
And
work
I
out.
know
Proclamation
most
is
of
not a
them.
recommendation, though.
I know most of them will apply, but some won't.
The recommendation was what came from the county's health department.
You
This
can't, you
proclamation
cannot go
is not
back
a
Clay County.
recommendation.
Clay County is so messed up.
You're right about that.
They're the laughing stock of the world.
So let's get that ordinance.
You know.
Well, the motion.
Yeah, motion to approve the ordinance.
Yeah, let's approve it.
Clevenger has a question.
Fred, did you have a question too? or did you-
I think that question's been pretty much answered, and,
So we have the-
be moving on.
The ordinance is what we have, and then the proclamation is giving the mayor the power to do that. But the ordinance will allow the people to go out tonight and close down the dining and everything like that.
We can recommend it
Correct.
as strict
Right.
Yeah.
for now.
No, I would tend to generally agree with that recommendation, if we can include something more specific to it, but if not, I'd rather just see it get out there and be
Yeah, see
enforced what we
how
got.
it goes, and then if he needs to
Yeah.
amend it, we can amend it.
That's
We can
exactly
amend
what
it.
I was saying, Kelly.
What we'd like to do, if you pass the ordinance, is take a pause. We have the proclamation. We'll get it signed and certified by the clerk, and the police
Okay.
department can go out immediately.
Do it.
And then if we need to amend the wording of the proclamation in the future, we can do
And
that.
we'll know real
I
quickly
agree
who's
with
not
that.
complying with it. And if there needs to be a stronger worded one, we'll draft one tomorrow.
We
Second,
need a motion?
Tom Farr, I think, you said first reading, or did you not?
Yeah, we need a first reading.
Yeah,
Okay, so
then second.
are you making
Second.
a motion?
I'll make the second. Did you say
Sorry.
first reading? Okay, second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
An ordinance providing for policies and procedures during health and safety emergencies within the city of North Kansas City, Missouri, and granting certain authority to the mayor and the city administrator.
I move that bill number 7499 be placed on second and final reading and pass as ordinance number 9296.
Second.
Call the roll.
Councilmember Smith.
Yeah.
Councilmember Pierman.
Yes.
Councilmember Clevenger.
Yes, ma'am.
Councilmember Stewart.
Yes.
Councilmember Stefan.
Yes.
Councilmember Farr.
Yes, ma'am.
Councilmember DeLong.
Yes.
Councilmember Pierce.
Yes.
An ordinance providing for policies and procedures during health and safety emergencies within the city of North Kansas City, Missouri, and granting certain authority to the mayor and the city administrator.
So if you don't mind, could we take a short pause before
Yep.
proceeding to the next item to get the mayor's signature?
Move to recess, 2 minutes.
Yeah, you-
I don't know, you need-
There's chocolate chip cookies in the room.
There is?
Thank you.
Sorry.
And the ordinance.
Sorry,
I won't
no.
share food with any of you.
Hey, we are
Valerie, you
good.
need to move.
We are good,
Because
clean
you're not
people.
six-
Okay,
Oh,
Mayor.
The fellow's feeling a little crowded there.
I'm just saying.
Breaking the law. I feel like I'm not loved.
Can you sign?
I was gonna walk over that way, I'm not going to hear nobody loves all this.
Oh, but
Here and
you-
here.
There's pretty much it's already,
And then I'll get the other thing.
Agreed to this. I drove up and down everywhere.
I do not trust the public at this point. I've seen too much idiots, too many idiots out, just
You make the cookies with what?
shoulder to shoulder.
I was shoulder to shoulder on Saturday.
I was mad at you on Saturday.
What?
I was mad at you.
Well,
I know you're supporting
It's
local business.
it's a personal choice, and I was not restricted to do so. So.
I'm doing whatever.
I'm doing whatever my freedoms still allow me to do, and I will not violate.
And then right there.
The more tightly we restrict the freedoms, the less the virus.
The razor blade.
I'm keeping my
Razor blade we
agency.
cast off to the phone print.
So,
I mean,
I am probably way too unconcerned.
Nothing has
because I know how my
closing
father-in-law,
down
my
my
father-in-law did die
not-for-profit
though.
my husband had a heart training, he is in the top 10 of,
my dad just had
Well,
a
who's
massive
good?
heart attack, and he smoked his whole life. He's in the upper
Yeah.
tier as well.
just half a dozen immune suppressant kinds of things, and he was out last night at procedure, prior to them
I
shutting
have-
down.
I have
That's
my
the
presentation.
that's the I'm trying to make, but people are gonna keep doing this until we say.
Well, and now it'll be shut down, so.
I'm doing it right.
But like, that's
If
the
it's
exact
signed,
opposite of the point we're making, like, the people will
Signed.
behave in accordance with.
I think they will.
should. I don't think they will.
I think they will,
Well,
I'm
you
more
just made my
confident.
point for me.
I know, no, well, they weren't shut down yesterday, so they had no reason to do that.
But they're not shut down under this proclamation, they just got 10 or more people in a group.
And I trust our local businesses to do the right thing. Because I think their ramifications, as I said, will be people won't go there.
Okay, are we ready to go back?
Let's see, well, the city clerk is
Indisposed right now.
Probably getting.
Do we give her a
Let's
second?
give Crystal.
Give her 29 seconds.
Crystal, you're back.
Yeah, my Crystal, obviously got cancer, but.
Crystal.
I booked a vacation to go see my sister at the.
One that runs the city.
Airlines are not shut down.
I'm sorry, I just wanted to get it all straightened.
Not yet.
Yes.
But they shut down, then I won't be able to do that.
Got everything?
Otherwise,
That's all up here. Okay.
Are we good? Good.
Yeah.
All right, sir.
Number 11?
Reward for arrest and conviction, stolen police vehicle.
Eric?
Thank you, sir. Calling the police chief, Kevin Britton.
Last council meeting, Councilmember Stephan requested that the council consider a reward of $5,000 that may lead to information to the arrest of the person found responsible for stealing my police car. We've been in contact with Gladstone Police Department, is where I reside. There was some DNA recovered that is at the lab right now. That process is slow also, probably slower now. The labs are being inundated with other things. But we don't really feel, in all due respect, sir, we don't really feel that this is a good, appropriate use of potential city funds, and that, you know, people are victimized all the time, unfortunately. Stolen autos happen all the time, unfortunately. Yes, it was a police car, but a very nondescript car in its description, because no lights visible, no markings on the car, no license plate that says this is a police car. So in my belief, I don't believe that this was a targeted action, and I feel like if we're going to potentially offer city money up for a reward for a crime, to be a little bit more serious. And I'd be happy to answer any questions on that.
I got one. As far as, let me be clear on this. The reason I propose this is that you have, the investigation is getting colder by the day. As far as expending any money, the most money would be $5,000, and that would not be spent unless there was a conviction. As far as being marginalized on the theft of a motor vehicle, I think a theft of a motor vehicle is pretty serious. And I can tell you, and maybe Mr. Stewart could help me remember, over there where the YMCA is, there was a building there. In the rear of the building at the south end was a wooden pallet company. Was that, do you remember that?
Yeah.
Was that Pioneer Pallet?
I think so.
And the owner of that was a council member, and he lived down on 25th Street. Well, I don't want to digress much, but the thing is, he had an employee there who was convicted of auto theft, spent 10 years of his life in prison. Now, in all clarity, I want to tell you this, two things about this guy. Number one, it wasn't in the state of Missouri, it was in the state of Louisiana. But he spent 10 years of his life in prison for auto theft. That's pretty darn serious to me. And the other thing is, the reason I came across him or had dealings with him is because he had what some people would call a sticky finger complex. He also had rabbit blood complex. He would run. So, I'll just throw it out there. You have a case that here on this police car vehicle theft. It's not likely, doesn't look to be that it's going to get solved. I do think that shouldn't be marginalized as not much of a case, and the money's not going to be out there unless there is a conviction. just turning in the name of somebody and even questioning somebody's not a conviction for crying out loud. So that's I don't want to go on this forever, but that and when the DNA test is coming back here, in the memo here it says 6 to 12 months. And the way things are now, I hope you can all hear me, is that probably closer to 12 months. Things have changed in the last week. People working from home and stuff. I don't know how the crime lab would do 6
If we did offer the award, where would the money come from? Out of which fund? And how would it be broadcast that we were offering the award? If we did.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, it's fine. I don't know where the fund, I imagine general fund, but I'll let the city administrator address that. But bear in mind, it's $5,000. Bear in mind, it's only for conviction, and that's what you want.
Is it like tips, hotline, or how would we get
Well,
the word out?
that's possible. That's something we could look at if we want to go forward on it. I'm throwing it out there. And I'm just, I can't quantify this, but the way the case looks now, it was maybe 1/2 of 1% that it ever be solved. This could be added, and that, my numbers could be a lot off, but maybe 25% of 1%. So you'd have, even with that, 75% of 1% chance of it. It's said the other way around, over a 99% chance it's not going to be solved. But,
You done, Fred? Rita?
With all due respect, Fred, because I understand where your heart's coming from this. I mean, I worked in law enforcement, and I get that. But this was really kept on the down low, if you will. I mean, there's not a whole lot of people who know that the car was stolen. I don't know if we need to broadcast that, number one. That's just my personal opinion. I have absolutely no respect for the thief. I think if we decide to offer a reward, we're going to have to somehow broadcast that regardless of where the funds come. You can't just say we're going to offer a reward of $5,000 and not tell anybody. And, I'm not saying we need to sweep it under the rug, because obviously it's not the chief's fault somebody stole his car, but I think that we'll let DNA evidence and the Gladstone Police do their job, and if they find this person, convict this person, and then move on down the line. Because a lot of times, when you do these sorts of things and you broadcast it, it sometimes really incentivizes other people to do stupid things like steal police cars and whatnot. I know that your heart's in the right place. I absolutely agree. You should not steal a police car, and you should pay a more significant penalty if you do steal a police car. But I think that's up to a court of law. And I suspect if they do find this person and they bring them to a court of law and they stole the chief's car, that they might even have a more severe penalty than if they stole my Volkswagen out of the parking lot right now. So kind of let criminal justice do what criminal justice does. That's just my opinion. But respecting exactly where you're coming from.
I'm just throwing it out.
I know you're.
To increase it. It's for the governing body to decide.
Exactly.
Anybody else? Let's call for a motion.
Well, I make a motion to move forward on it.
You got a second?
I'll second it, so we can vote on
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
No. Can I take a roll call?
Sure. Roll call.
Councilmember Smith?
No.
Councilmember Pearman?
No.
Councilmember Clevenger?
it. Yes.
Councilmember Stewart? Councilmember Stefan?
Yes.
Councilmember Farr?
No.
Councilmember DeLong?
No.
Councilmember Pierce?
No.
13. Oh, what?
Number 12.
No, number 12.
COVID-19 response.
Okay, who's in charge of that?
I am. Well, it's been a whirlwind few days. But we did issue a press release yesterday that did sort of summarize the actions that we did decide to take after looking very carefully at what was going on and what others were doing, and things have moved very, very fast, as I'm sure you've all seen. It's been hard to keep up. But amongst the things that we have done, we have closed City Hall. The lobby is closed. People can call us and we can tell them the various ways that they can make payments to us and handle the city business that they've come to City Hall to enact. But we have closed both the City Hall, and that includes municipal court, includes police headquarters, fire stations, Parks and Recreation Center, are all now closed to the public as of yesterday at 5 p.m. We are asking as employees to work from home just as much as possible. There is some degree to which the employees may need to come to City Hall to take care of some business, but to the greatest degree possible, I want people to maintain separation. And with the existing technology, we can get onto our system, and now I'm told by the IT manager that there's lots of demand now on that technology, that online technology that allows us to do it, but we can still do it. But to the greatest degree possible, those are my instructions. We're also not congregating here at City Hall. One thing that's fortunate is we don't work in cubicles a lot or anything. We do have a fair amount of separation here in City Hall. But we did have an all-hands management team meeting yesterday where we all sat in a room together, but that'll be the last time for a long time that we do that. We have a management team meeting tomorrow. My instructions are everybody call in. That's the kind of things that we're going to be trying to do going forward. We've suspended water utility shutoffs until further notice. Bills will continue to accrue and all, but if anybody has been turned off, we'll turn it back on. We want people to be able to clean their hands and stay sanitary. We are still handling a lot of the functions of the city government, even though we're not allowing people into the building. Building permits, code enforcement, fire inspection, and plan review can move forward at this time. People call in, we'll send people out, we'll maintain social distance while we do these things. Police department has implemented certain adjustments, including restricted access, including into internal departments like dispatch, where we've told folks who often have gone there and visited to not do that anymore. We are encouraging citizens to report certain kinds of incidents over the phone instead of coming here and using emergency resources to respond to their location. Animal control is still continuing operations, but the facility will only be accessible by appointment. Fire department has implemented some operational adjustments, including suspension of non-essential activities like the public outreach, fire station tours, etc. Municipal court has postponed its upcoming 2 dockets to a later date with permission of the municipal court judge. Parks and Recreation will be closed until May 4th. The building, Wagon Trail Dog Park will be closed. The public until further notice. It includes all classes and programs that they had scheduled, all until May 4th, all rental parties and sports events and all that. Mackin Park is too big a park to close. Jack Park is also open, but the restrooms in those parks will not be open until May 4th. And those dates may be reassessed, but those are the current dates. The library is closed until further notice. In all honesty, as we work from home and do all these things that we're trying to do, in all honesty, we're not going to be as productive as we can be when we're all here. Using the city resources, we'll do the very best we can. Lately, the last few days have just been dealing with the crisis. We haven't really, at least at my level and Kim's level, able to do much else like that. But gradually, we'll figure out, what the routine is. That's kind of it in a nutshell. We are exercising proper cleaning protocols, cleaning often. We are good on cleaning supplies. That's fortunate. And police department isn't changing staffing right now, but in water distribution, municipal services, they'll be doing some split shifts. Also, the finance department, front office, the front staff here that have windows out on the lobby, you'll be doing split shift. What else can I tell you? We're handling things. In terms of the council meeting, I am sorry for the confusion. Our heart was in the right place. I'd rather not assemble people. But we have found that the only legal means to conduct a meeting right now is for you all to meet in person. We will work on the setup for the next meeting, probably be somewhat different than this. We'll get it on camera. We'll get it mic'd up. We just weren't able to do that so quickly for tonight's meeting. And that will enable the meeting to be public. I may well recommend to you, and we can do it legally with the public, but we can do things like take public comment, have people send in their public comments ahead of time. And so that we can still, handle meetings and allow people to get their word in. Public hearings, I think similar kind of thing. If we have public hearings that have to be scheduled, we can get people to sign up ahead of time, and we can manage to get, hearings held, I think. We just need to try to figure it out. Yes, sir.
A similar question I sent earlier in email. Is there like a centralized area we can have people submit that stuff, or do you want to
Yeah, I
keep
said to
funneling
me
towards you?
tonight, but I think the city clerk going forward,
Okay.
if somebody has,
Okay.
yeah.
There we
And
go.
we'll put out word about that.
Yeah,
Before
okay.
the meeting here. If you have a public comment, the meeting is closed to, attending, but we'll put out the word.
I was wondering if we could put that on our website.
Yes, we will.
Okay, that's what you're thinking.
Yes, that's what I
Okay,
mean.
okay.
Yes,
Okay.
when we put out a meeting notice, we'll make it clear. Yes, sir.
What would it take, or is it completely off the table to find a way to not have to meet?
We're gonna look for that.
Okay.
But our current understanding is this, you have to meet.
So-
I wish to heck that we could have done
Yeah.
it virtually like we intended to do last
What,
night.
what would the penalty to us be if we did
Well,
it digitally?
Tom might say $1.
Yeah.
Tom might say $1, we'd like to be compliant.
Right.
We'd like to,
This is a public health crisis, though.
yeah, I
How
know,
would
I
we do
agree.
this?
I think assembling people in this particular emergency is borderline irresponsible.
It is.
But it's state law right now.
So I just got an alert that, I don't know if you guys got this or not, that half of the city council and Kansas City Council is in
Has the
quarantine.
software machine.
Yes.
Now,
Yeah.
remember, in Kansas City, unlike here, the mayor votes on everything, so they will have a quorum because they will have 7 and the 6, is the way I read that, so.
Yeah,
Or that they
so-
met as a group and now half of them are in
So
quarantine.
don't be, getting near
Seems there'd
anybody
be an
here.
emergency provision to knock this off.
Well, they'll.
If we find it, we'll let you know, and that would be my goal.
Is there a person we could call or press to get this done?
Well, I understand there's.
Or legislators.
Yeah, I understand there is legislation that's bubbling around in the General Assembly, so.
Well, Kansas City will be online.
Of course, they're
What-
not all meeting either.
What is the hang up on taking it electronic? Is it that we can't do it, or is it one part of the law, or?
It's
or what?
statute.
So our understanding of the statute is that the council, in order to exclude the public, the council has to meet both audially, whatever the word is,
Yeah.
and visually.
Visually, yeah.
So that's hard to do without having you all in the room together, you see.
So even over like a video conference?
Yeah, well, if we can do that,
we can
and we're
do
gonna
that.
explore
Because
that
we all have
further.
our
If we can
iPads
get
too,
you
and we
all,
have the technology.
and if the public
I
can
can work
see
with
you,
you on that.
Yeah.
it can't just be you all looking at each other.
It's up to
The
300
public's gotta be
people.
able to look in.
So right now, our limitation is technology.
It's an open meetings act.
Yeah, I try to figure out how we
Oh,
connect
yeah.
people so they can see
That
us well.
definitely exists.
It's
But
not
we
the
can-
meeting,
Yeah.
it's not the problem.
Yeah.
It's the voting,
Exactly.
But,
okay?
Okay.
Which you have to
It's
do
real
in
clear.
person.
I'm gonna read one sentence out of the state
It's in the
statute.
statute.
One sentence that should make it real clear to everybody. It says, when it is necessary to take votes by roll call in a meeting of the public governmental body, due to an emergency of the public body, with a quorum of the members of the public body physically present and in attendance, and less than a quorum of the members of the public body participating via telephone, facsimile, video, etc. Okay? Meaning, you have to have 5 people here physically present. That's the reason I put that language in there, realizing that you have to have 5 present, but if we got a majority of you folks sick, I wanted some means by doing it, even if it didn't follow the statute completely. That's what they're trying to, that's to vote. If you go down to having a meeting, you can't have a meeting electronically, and it talks about it.
What
But
about?
meeting doesn't help you when it comes to voting in the case of an emergency, which is what this.
What about the line? What about the line before that?
Yeah.
The line
One up from
before
what you
it
read.
doesn't apply.
Oh, so.
What do you mean, the line before it?
Well, it says, talks about voting shall be cast by members of the public governmental body who are physically present and in attendance at the meeting or who are participating via video conferencing.
The point is, I can just tell you this. I've talked to enough lawyers about this, and first of all, what do they tell you in the municipal court, city clerk's things? You have to be
They
here.
have to be here.
And
At least.
I watched a webinar today that was put on by a firm that does, the city attorney for a lot of cities, and they're all saying the same thing. I'm sorry, but
Yeah.
we got 3 weeks to explore all
Yeah.
this, and we're gonna do our best. But
Right. I mean, everybody
unfortunately, we
does.
felt that for this meeting, to do it legally, we had to ask you to come in. But to the greatest power that we can do it legally, we're gonna avoid assembling people, including you.
That's our ordinance that we passed, though, that talks about our electronic meeting.
Well, that, if state law
Yeah.
allows.
If state law
If
allows.
state law allows, now you've allowed it, but that's,
You're
yeah.
just prepping for a
Right.
possibility.
Eric, I have a question, along with statutorial kinds of things. I'm getting a lot of, well, I've heard a lot of people say, oh, are we gonna, like, not have the election in April? And at least according to the statutes that I read and I've shared, that we have to.
Well,
Given we don't have to?
What we understood.
It's now we're under a state of emergency, so now can we change that?
What we've heard is, first of all, we are not the election, the city is not the election
Right,
authority, the
right.
Lake Cook County Board of Elections
Right.
is. Our understanding from them today is that they are drafting a petition to submit to the circuit court, I guess, that would move the election to June 2nd.
Okay.
Now, that still has to go to court, there needs to be a court order, but my understanding is
That's
it
short
could be
of time.
changed by court order, but
Okay.
only by court order.
Yeah, they're gonna get that in front of a court in
Yeah.
this short
And
amount of time?
I don't know.
they are proceeding as if it's going to happen until they get another.
But without a court order, they can't do that.
Correct.
And they gotta get a court order between now and April 7th.
And a lot of the counties.
Lucky you, Crystal, that you have to deal with
Fred,
all this.
go ahead.
Well, I'll wait until she's done.
I'm done.
You know, what I've heard on the news is different states have taken the primary elections and moved them back. And I would think that, you know, if the governor and the legislature does that, it's a done deal.
That may be, sir, it might be that the governor could do that. Our experience with this governor is that he likes to defer to local authority.
Yep.
But I mean, certainly that happened in Ohio, and it could be that the governor,
Illinois.
Right, so
Uh-huh.
then, there could, if the governor does something, and, you know, then, and it's legal, then that's what it'll be, but that's our best understanding of where things stand now. As of today, the election is on April 7th, and, it could change between now and then.
Just
So, in
curious.
some matters.
But
And I
we as
heard
the-
June
we
as well.
the city can't change that.
Right.
We have to be
We
the
cannot.
election.
Well, I realize we can't
Yeah.
in the city.
Yeah.
I'm just
610-01.
fielding questions, and
Right.
I don't like to answer things that I
That's our
don't have
best
the answers to. So, thank you for
You
that.
can share what we said.
Exactly,
Yeah.
which is well shown.
Any other questions about our response, where we stand right now?
I guess we don't have any idea when the city hall will be open again then.
No, sir. I'll consult with you, but boy, the best information I'm hearing is a couple of months. You know, that this could go on a couple of months, and that might be a minimum. But as soon as authorities are saying that we're getting to that point, we want to go back to normal.
You know, I was watching, they had a program on Missouri politics on Sunday on television. And I just hope, you know, we're doing a good job, and I want to commend everyone for it. But, and I've been through a situation of turmoil. You would say it's not like this, but it was turmoil in the flood in 1993. But, I hope we're continuing to be cautious, number one. Number two, be prepared. And number three, let's not get hysterical. I mean, you know, we just tried to buy toilet paper in North Kansas City today. I tried to buy toilet paper.
CVS gets it
in the
on
city.
Thursday.
Can't get it at Sam's either.
Well, I'm talking about it in our city. You can't get it.
Brian, you have something?
No, I just kind of had a question about general communication. How are you guys talking? You're talking with the county, I'm guessing, in regular communication with the state level?
All
or-
of those, yeah.
Okay.
We're listening to the Missouri Intermunicipal League. Mark is doing a good job of telling us what other localities are doing. I've been texting frequently with the city managers in Liberty and Gladstone today about what they're doing. So we're getting information from lots of sources.
It's kind of the backside of all this is, hoping to make sure our residents are okay, make sure businesses are, able to recover long haul on this. And a lot of that stuff's funneling down to the state level, so it's just, making sure
We're doing our
on
best
board with all-
to share
yeah.
with you and with the public, as we get information in.
Well, it's a good thing the cities in Clay County are communicating, because Clay County's doing such a fine job. Sorry.
Number 13.
I'm sorry, Justin.
In the vein of, I'm getting a lot of questions from folks down the street. We've got the Gardens community, the over 55 group that's very, very concerned. So I've gotten questions. Do we have any idea about when testing will be available in our area at all? We don't. No ideas yet?
City staff doesn't know.
Okay, yeah.
I've got a little bit.
Thank you.
We had an emergency managers meeting in March yesterday. They're in the process. Johnson County is getting close to Kansas. The Missouri side, Mark, the Regional Healthcare Coalition is working diligently to figure out where and how to put that, because they want to keep that away from hospitals. And it's going to have to be a drive-through site, so that's creating some logistical problems. But the local region and Mark right here in Missouri is actively working on setting up drive-through testing. It's just getting everything put together with everything else that's going on. That hasn't been a priority. It's been the initial mitigation efforts, but they're working on the testing facilities in this area. It's just not there yet.
And is there anywhere somebody could go, say, right now if they thought they needed to get a test in North Kansas City?
So they are supposed to call their personal provider first. All of the hospitals, emergency rooms, urgent care centers set up individualized protocol. Really the best thing, what we are advising people, it's been at the bottom of almost every single press releases that the city has sent out, is please call your primary health care provider. That is your first step.
And don't just go in.
Yes, yes. That is the messaging we are getting from all the hospital circuits here in the metro, as well as all the health departments. They are very united in that message, that we are not to direct them anywhere. We are to direct them to their physician.
Chief, I understand that we're in a good position with our CVS here, who already has a great pharmacy, and they're listed as one of the, when the testing comes around, providers, drive-through providers. So have you heard anything about that? Well, we might be lucky with having that CVS right down here in the middle of our town, because that's one of the, many of the companies that have been listed as being able to provide the drive-through service.
Two more things. Are there any services that are available in the city for elderly and at-risk folks to get groceries or basic items that they might need? Anything they could call, or is that just kind of volunteer based?
Yeah, I've seen one volunteer offer. It's not anything that we're prepared to do at this point.
Right.
There are grocery stores that deliver.
I think this was logged out for like weeks ago. They try to log on to the card tiles online. It's pretty far to push that off.
And I've seen this already put on Facebook, it would be advantageous, because a lot of times, particularly like the Gardens, I think they have some transportation, sometimes that they're not one of those. But there are places where there's transportation where seniors go and they show up at Price Chopper at a particular app, so they feel more comfortable. I don't know, it's on down the road, I don't know how you can do that. There's not a not-for-profit that will do that will take on that risk. There's nothing in place for it. I think we just need to look out for each other. And, if you have an older neighbor and you know about them, just do it. I don't know any other way about it right now.
One other question is, obviously Clay County is the elephant in the room. Is there any person that we can call or anybody we can prompt for a little more decisive action from? I know you've been in touch. I read the correspondence. It was infuriating.
It is your Clay County Commissioners.
Oh, God. Okay, so is there anybody, like anybody with a health
I gotta tell you,
department?
the Clay County Health Department, until now, has been one of the bright spots.
Right,
in Clay County.
that's been the confusion in
So
all
we're a little
this.
surprised by the,
Lack of
slow pace
initiative.
But would it help for like a few of us to call them and say,
You are more than
It can't
welcome to
hurt.
call
Yeah.
the Clay County Health Department or your presiding commissioners, both the presiding one and the fellow one.
Western.
I mean, we did everything we could at the staff level to be as clear in our communication about our concern level.
yeah, no, you did a great job trying to, I would be a little less tactful than you, because I'm just sick of the business.
I think Kim had a more forceful conversation.
Okay.
A bit more of a, energetic
Yeah, that's why I
conversation
picked up
with
the phone and
them
called Eric.
that
I
I
was about to
recapped in a
unleash
written
fury.
word.
Okay, that's all my question.
Item 13,
Approving accounts due and payable by the city through March 13th, 2020, bill number 7498, ordinance number 9295.
First reading.
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
An ordinance authorizing payment for certain accounts due and payable by the city through March 13th, 2020.
I move that bill number 7498 be placed on second and final reading and passes ordinance number 9295.
Second.
Call the roll.
Councilmember Smith?
Yes.
Councilmember Pearman?
Yes.
Councilmember Clevenger?
Yes, ma'am.
Councilmember Stewart?
Yes.
Councilmember Stefan?
Yes.
Councilmember Carr?
Yes, ma'am.
Councilmember DeLong?
Yes.
Councilmember Pierce?
Yes.
An ordinance authorizing payment for certain accounts due and payable by the city through March 13th, 2020.
Mr. Ayers.
Well, sir, I really don't have anything else in addition to what we talked about. You have a number of reports in your packet. Is there anybody, any management team members here who have anything that they want to mention?
Sure. I don't know if everybody was aware, this afternoon, the governor sat down and closed all the casinos in the state of Missouri. I went down this afternoon and met with the Harris staff about how some of the plans they have for shuttering that. They're gonna close the casino floor at 9 o'clock tonight, and by 11 o'clock tomorrow morning, all the hotel guests will be gone, be required to be gone, and they're gonna shutter the doors. And actually, one of the things we were talking about, part of their doors down there don't have locks on them because they were closed, so, we're working with them on issues with that. But they are officially closed at 9 o'clock tonight, and all the guests will be gone at 11 tomorrow, and that's for at least 2 weeks.
Hey.
Is that all the casinos or just ours?
All of them.
All the casinos in the state of Missouri
In the state.
will be closed.
Mr. Mayor, do you know when they might open? If they say, when there's something about
March
it?
30th.
March 30th is the date pending whether it gets extended or not.
Have you already looked, I know it's been a short period since that announcement came out, but what kind of impact we could be looking at?
I couldn't tell you tonight, but, you know, of course, everybody in this disaster is going to suffer greatly economically, but certainly we will. First of all, aside from Harris, and that's going to be a big hit to our gaming fund, we get about a third of our general fund revenue from sales tax. If there's no economic activity, or very little economic activity, you know, our sales tax revenues are going to go way down. That we are going to, but I couldn't tell you tonight
That's
what
fair.
the hit will be.
Yeah, of the ones that were easier to
But
track, I
it,
figured
you know,
out.
from what I have heard, once you close these things down, even after the disaster passes, it takes a while for people to get back in the habit of doing these things. So, we'll see a very significant hit to our gaming revenues this year. But, you know, if I might, just since you mentioned that, I would like to still be able to bring you certain capital projects that we've already gotten started, that we, for example, bid out and got it bids on, and they're important. So my intention would be not to generate new ones, not to put out a bid on something that, even if it's budgeted, but I really probably would at your next meeting, some items that I just said, tonight's not the night, that we had on the agenda, but I don't want to, I would suggest that we not discontinue everything, but certainly we need to be very conscious of the fact that we're going to see a big revenue hit this year as a result of what's occurred. And I recognize that. But I would also urge you not to drop every single thing.
You Jesse, you're up.
Oh, well, all right, I'll ask a question with my comment. Any thoughts on amending the budget going forward so that we have more of a target to shoot for once we've got an idea? of
Let me
what
take a
it's-
look at that.
Okay. Because it's gonna be tough to kind of operate in that wishy-washy where, like, we have these budgeted, but we're probably not gonna do them. And I know that's a big ask at this point since it's also uncertain. But it would help to kind of have some bounds on where we go for the second half of the year.
Sure. Let me work on that for you, you know,
When you have time, not immediate. Focus on what's going on. Okay, so a couple things for me. First off, tons of gratitude to the staff. We're swimming in unprecedented water, this is just uncharted, and I think we're doing the best we can. We've had, depending on your opinion, failings at just about every level because we just weren't ready for this. So thanks to the staff for communicating with us, getting word out to the public. A few things that we will need to think on down the line. This is going to have a major impact, like Eric mentioned, economically. We've seen the market falling in free fall. We've seen closures of local businesses, even more now with this proclamation that we're going to put out. There's going to be some serious economic fallout. It's not just the businesses, it's their employees, it's the people who, are out, hourly workers. There's just going to be a lot of fallout from this, so being cognizant of that. And then also primarily being cognizant of public health. And I can't say it enough, and I feel like I'm an alarmist, but I've been yelling about this since early last week. Being out in public spaces, even if the law was okay at that point, is just irresponsible. And people look to us for examples in the city. They see us out and about. They start thinking, oh, it's a good idea. So just really, really keeping an eye on that. But also finding ways to support the local businesses. There's gift cards that you can buy. There's to-go. There's curbside pickups. There's delivery options. So keeping that revenue stream going while not endangering the public is going to be really important. Just keep yourself safe out there. That's all.
I don't have any comments. Nothing left to say.
Oh, okay.
Not too much either, just want to thank our staff for working with us on this. I know Eric's been giving us communications regularly. We are, like Jesse said, unprecedented, there's no precedent for this. This is the first time we've gone through it. So as far as, you've got some people that are on both ends of the spectrum, and I think it's prudent to err on the side of caution rather than have a mistake.
Who's next?
No, I forgot, wait.
You're on.
I don't have anything to add. Somebody probably needs to cancel that baseball. I didn't see any cancellation for it. That
Oh,
meeting.
yes, I'm sure we will.
Okay.
Or we might do it, if we can, we might do it, remotely. But I agree with you, we're not gonna get together in a room for it.
Yeah, okay.
Right.
I must have missed it. Councilmember DeLong and Pierce give their,
He's the first one
He's
tonight.
the first one to talk.
Jesse.
I didn't get
Thank
that.
you, though.
All right. Well, I'd just say, appreciate everything staff has done. And don't want to see everybody get hysterical. And going forward, if at all possible, let's try to not say one thing, 3 hours later, change it, and then next day change it or something. Try to stick with it as best you can. Realizing that, things do change and you have to change it. But that tends to hurt morale and tends to have an erosion of leadership among the population, I think. But you've done an excellent job, and it just first time we've ever been hit with something like this. As far as your point, stock market, heck, it's decreased over 30%. Unbelievable. I can't believe that. You look at it, they'll have changes at 9, 10, double-digit %, up and down in one day. I've never seen anything like that. But, looking down the road to keep something in the back of the person's mind, and I want to get full disclosure here because I could benefit or potentially from it. And that is, you might look or might think about, there might be a reduction in the assets of the pension plan going forward. But for me, when I see this, it's tremendous. I can't believe how much things have eroded monetarily for me, but I'm looking at it as a buying opportunity. Just waiting for it to bottom out. That's a basic principle. You buy low, and I'm glad I got some cash. I'm getting all the cash I can together. I'm waiting for it. Got my orders in on some of them. It's going to come back. The stock market will come back. But it does concern me that this is just abnormal. Completely, I've never seen anything like it. So that's, and I do want to commend the staff. What an excellent job you've done. That's all I have.
Right.
Tom.
Hey, Tom.
Seen you all night, I mean.
Oh, yeah.
I just want to thank Eric and his staff, they've done great. I especially want to thank Crystal for keeping me abreast of everything. Thank you, Crystal. Mayor, there's a lot of weight on your shoulders right now. I commend you for it. I know you do well. That's all I have.
I'd say the same. Definitely got to thank staff for getting information out and being prompt in replies. And you know, we did tonight. It's tough, but we did the right thing. You know, we got to slow this thing down. It'll be hard on our residents and it'll be hard on our businesses. But we'll come through it. We'll be there for them. We'll help lift everyone up again. That's all I got.
And, you know, I can only say the same, the communication has been excellent, and it really makes it a lot easier when our residents have questions of us. You know, I don't think it's gonna come as a surprise to anybody that we are closing things down tonight at all, because they've already been shut down all over the place. Is there an opportunity, Eric, if we indeed do meet in June, that we can discuss some of the budget issues at that time? You know, do you have those
Oh, you're
meetings
talking about the
slated?
strategic
Yeah.
planning meeting?
Yeah.
Sure.
Okay.
That would be a good time to do that.
And if we meet them, I'm thinking since we already have that slated,
Right.
and we've got so many other things on our hands, take a little weight off your shoulders. If indeed we meet them, you can start thinking about that then. And then Constantino's grocery stores put out something on Facebook or email or whatever. I've been reading too many things. And I just want to commend them because they are hiring for all of their grocery stores for people who are not employed during this time period, like people who are in the restaurant business and the bar business, and they're going to hire a whole mess of people and try to keep them employed. I sent them a kudos and said I wish you were also in North Kansas City. Just thought I'd throw that out there. But there are people like that who are stepping up, and we do need to support our local businesses. And if you keep track of things, there's ways to do that. Instead of eating at McDonald's, I'm going to go to a restaurant and spend a little bit more money because, frankly, I'm going to be spending a whole lot less money doing other things because I'm going to be at home. So any way that you can support locally, that would be great. And I just hope everybody stays safe. And like you said, Fred, we're all going to survive this. And just have to be strong and be good leaders.
You know, one of the things when I first got into this job is what I was fearing is that, you know, if we ever got up, the river come up to where we was gonna flood, it was up to the mayor to say, hey, get out or don't get out. So you're damned if you do and you're damned if you don't, you know.
Didn't see this coming.
But now, all of a sudden, now this thing, I wasn't in here for that. But I'll do the best I can, and we'll go from there. We'll make it.
Yep.
Move to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Thank you all. Adjourn in ahead of me.
She's getting better.
Usually I get that as we're walking out of the.
Oh, yeah, no, she started in the cage.
Another case in Jackson County.
I'm going to check my mailbox.
After hearing this new council.
I didn't get the, the reason is the section that's set before and video, but then you have to go to the next section, because the more specific, that defines those, it says that they can vote, and those in person as well as both video conference, but that doesn't mean we can have more than 3 in our county, we only have 8 on the video conference. Okay? What you have to understand is it specifically becomes more specific, and it says with the majority of the council physically present. Okay, and that's what defines what.
Sorry, I'm just trying to visualize.
Are you able to
I
work
feel like I've stared at it a lot of times. Okay.
And so, I wasn't trying to be short with your intent, I just wanted you to know that. That wasn't my
this, man. The or,
in the middle of that sentence,
No, but.
in person or participating.
But, yeah, but the next sentence covers emergencies though.
No, but it covers, because this is an emergency, is the reason you're doing it. You wouldn't be here